is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
To the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's gonna pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's gonna get them all done with. What amazing!
Lee to the inside goes Logan Clapton is gonna touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save!
Looks to the outside, and Tronke goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
He's trying this contact though.
Slide left of the racetrack. Chris Benner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the upset the Parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cutback here. Get the run out the Parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Makashube, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
Back in July, we began this season at the Autodromo José Carlos Paz in Brazil. It was a very controversial one. The controversy continued through the next couple of rounds of the series, but throughout it all, we've had 3 main contenders for this championship: John Peasnick, Luis Paulo Gallon, and Ross Rizzo. This is the Geodesic Racing Sprint Series Australasia, here on the iRacing Esports Network, presented by ourselves, SimSpeed TV. We come to the final and 10th round of the championship at the Mount Panorama circuit, a 1-hour endurance race with 2 compulsory pit stops to decide the championship. My name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, David Haynes. David, it has all come down to this, and we have got our 3 main title contenders with absolutely nothing between them.
Yeah, exactly, Reese. I am so excited for this. We've had 9 fantastic rounds of racing, ups and downs, surprises, and in the end, the points are so close, it might as well not even matter. Of those 3 drivers, whoever is ahead of the others when the checkered flag flies is pretty much guaranteed to be our championship winner. Really, they are racing against each other and nothing else matters.
That's exactly right. Looking at the championship standings, after 9 rounds with drop rounds removed, we got John Peasnick currently in the lead, 2,576 points. Luis Paulo Gallon is only 2 points behind Ross Rizzo, only a further point behind Gallon. That right there is your championship fight. That's how close everything is. And Martin Silvassi there in 4th place. He is 256 points behind John Peasnick in the championship, but he still has the slimmest of chances to win today. If all 3 of our top 3 title contenders DNF, then Martin Silvassi needs to finish 21st or higher to win the championship. So it's to play for Martin Silvassi, but the way that these guys up the front work, I think they are going to be our absolute main contenders here today.
Yep, precisely. So mathematically, Silvassi isn't out of it, but any of the other three finish, he's not gonna have a chance at it. But he is a teammate to Ross Rizzo, and that'll be interesting to see what role some of the teammates from our championship contenders might play in a long race like this with different strategies to play out.
Yes, indeed. Of course, strategy. We do have 2 compulsory pit stops in this 60-minute race, and there's a 40% fuel tank restriction across the board. So every driver is going to have to pit twice in this race. Even if a safety car comes out and they can afford to save a bit of fuel, they can't just sneak by without one of their pit stops hoping they can make it to the end. They have to take 2. So that's going to really spice things up. And I think in terms of the strategy game, people like Ross Rizzo, they love to play their strategies throughout the race. It's going to be interesting to see what he does with that setup.
Yeah, precisely. The default that you'd think about is just starting with a full tank, running that as long as you can, filling it up, running that as long as you can, and then taking enough fuel to get to the end. But with 2 stops, there's so many different permutations you could take of taking an early stop if you thought you were in traffic, maybe taking your second stop early. The 2 pit stops really opens up the pit stop window, and I can't even hazard a guess at what strategy some of these guys might be aiming for.
Yes, indeed. So we're going to be just as surprised as you viewers if and when it comes around. The session will be going live very, very shortly. We're currently in the warm-up session before the race session begins. So we're coming through very, very shortly. Checkered flag is flying. And now we are in the race session. And this is your grid. John Peasnick on pole position. Joshua Anderson slotting it in second place. Luis Paulo Gallon in third. Reese Gasol in fourth. Anthony Winkelman fifth. Ross Rizzo in sixth. So your championship contenders are first, third, and sixth. Top 10 rounded out by Philip Worley, Adam Briggs, Martin Silvassi, and Scott Cislovsky. We are not going to have time to go through everyone else individually because there's only 30 seconds left until the green flag flies. And of course, it is not a full formation lap here at Bathurst, Dave. They have to start on Conrod Straight.
Exactly, they'll just have the chase to go through, and then the the green flag will fly, get this 1 hour of racing underway. But Reese, what a track is Mount Panorama to have the finale of this series at. It's got to be the greatest track in Australia and one of the greatest in the world. So what a great place to decide this championship.
Yes, indeed. It is the greatest track in Australia. Possibly one of the greatest tracks in the world. So no better place for a championship like this to finally conclude after so long. After nearly 5 months of racing every 2 weeks. It's all going to come down to this. John Peasnick is going to lead the way here. He will decide when to go. The pace car is already pulling ahead of everybody. We're going to go for 1 hour very, very soon. So Peasnick just keeping it nice and consistent. Is he going to go early before Murray's Corner? The suspense is released. There goes our championship leader, leading the field away as we go green at Mount Panorama. Josh Anderson and Luis Paulo Gallon fighting in the braking zone for Hell Corner. Gallon wins out. So this is crunch time for Gallon. He knows that he needs to pursue John Peasnick. Ross Rizzo also making moves as well. He is side by side with Reese Gasol coming down Mountain Straight. It is all to play. You can see your championship right there in that one shot as they go through Griffins for the first time.
It was a great start there by Luis Polo Gallon. He needed to get ahead of Josh Anderson to get after John Peasnick. He's done just that. And Ross Rizzo, I think, has managed to get around Reese Gasol, Luis Polo Gallon's teammate. So the championship now even closer than their starting grid spot.
Yes, indeed. This is pretty intense. Coming across the top now. Currently looking at John Schultz. As he is pursuing, I think that's Hayden Dodman across the top. Meanwhile, Reese Gasol and Ross Rizzo fighting pretty hard here. Rizzo is feeling a lot of pressure from these guys behind him. Of course, he knows that he is in contention for the championship, but he's always been one of those careful drivers, and at a point like this, that may make him come unstuck.
Yeah, exactly. If Rizzo lost that position back to Gasol, that wouldn't be race over just yet, because there would still be so much to play out of strategy and the 58 remaining minutes of this race. But so far, that is a good start for Ross Rizzo.
It certainly is, and Josh Anderson at the moment, we're riding on board with as he chases down Luis Polo Gallon. Now Anderson, he's in a bit of an awkward position here because he is quick. He has the potential to win this race, but anything he does is going to interfere in the championship battle in some way. He needs to be careful not to race these guys too hard because they have their own championships to sort out. He's looking at John Schultz once again through Hell Corner. And if anything happens to any of our championship contenders through the actions of another driver, the stewards are going to be straight on that.
Yeah, the race control have been very heads up this season, monitoring things very closely as we got a move by one of the Team Milo cars up the back. They're sticking just nose down the inside, but can't get it done. Nonetheless, I think Josh Anderson knows he's in the middle of a championship fight, but I think he's just racing for him. I'm not sure he's going to be bothered. He's just going to be trying to get his best result out of this one race.
Yeah, indeed he is. Riding on board with Reese Gasol, because I think you just saw Ross Rizzo make a mistake in the cutting. On board with Rizzo as he... Whoa, goodness me! Who's
Anderson.
that? That's Anderson! Josh Anderson blocking the track up the top of the mountain. That's not very safe. He's got to wait for that entire field to come past him.
Yeah, so I imagine he might have cut just a bit too much curb on the exit and unsettled that Ferrari. There's not many other people driving a Ferrari, so we've got the replay here, I think. See what happens to him.
Oh, that was Peasnick! Gallon and Peasnick! What? We're taking a look at another replay here, because what on earth happened?
I hate to say it, but that does have huge championship implications. Massive damage, both of them towed, both of them out of this race. So I'm sure we'll get plenty of a look at that, because that is huge.
Peasnick makes a mistake, big into the wall, and goes straight into Gallon. What a letdown. My God. That's very weird for Peasnick. It looked like it may have been a hardware failure. He just went hard right, but what a letdown. That's given Ross Rizzo the title.
Yeah, at this point, you can't really imagine a situation where Ross Rizzo takes the checkered flag and doesn't win the title, because I believe there is a faster pair available, so I imagine we'll see Peasnick and Gallon out again, but at least a lap down to Rizzo, who at this point just needs to stay on the lead lap to be crowned Geodesic Racing Sprint Series Australia Season 3 champion.
It only took 2 laps.
All of this hype, all of this anticipation, how close the points were, and then on lap 2, 2 of our championship contenders collide up the top of the hill. Wow, Reese. Wow.
I'm lost for words. Absolutely lost for words. We still have a race going on though, so we'll follow that. Oh, Rizzo making a mistake coming out of the dipper, and Reese Gasol right on the back of him. So the battle still very much on for what is now position 2. Meanwhile, Luis Polo Gallon has come back out onto the circuit. And Peacenik as well. So, it's not quite over for them in terms of the race, but, I mean...
Are they still on the lead lap, Reese?
I think they
still
are.
on the lead lap? Well,
They
in that
are.
case, a safety car would bring them back up to the back of the field, and then they could work some kind of strategy based on how much fuel they took, or in fact, would they have filled the cars then? Would that count to one of their compulsory pit stops, Reese?
I would really hesitate to say that it would, and I mean, if the allowance was in the rules for that, then I would really question that. I hope not, because I mean, it doesn't really seem fair, don't you think?
But at the same time, if their car has to be towed, I don't know. It would be up to how the series organisers decided they wanted to run it. And I'm sure we'll get a word to it, but
Have they made
regardless-
allowance for something like that?
Yeah,
That's the question on my mind. Is it in the rules that if you crash, can you take service in the pits when you turn back? Well, we'll have to keep a lookout for that. Ross Rizzo, though, making another mistake. And Reese Gasol now right up behind him. So as they come over the top of the hill for the fourth time, it's Anthony Winkleman currently leading this one. This is the battle for second that we're looking at right now. You've got Adam Briggs and Philip Worley further behind as well. So this is a 4-car train now behind Ross Rizzo.
Yeah, little bit of a Rizzo train, but Reese Gasol, LP Racing, his team boss is Luis Paulo Gallon, and so the more pressure that Gasol puts on Rizzo, the more it helps Paulo Gallon.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Reese Gasol is a teammate of John Peacenik. Am I wrong?
Apologies, I've got that one wrong.
Yeah, so it would be helping John Peacenik, if anything. Definitely not helping Gallon, unfortunately, though I'm sure Gallon would appreciate a bit of help.
Gasol looks to the inside a little bit of the final corner there, but you know, for the last few laps, he's still being tucked up behind Rizzo. Just seems to be any little mistake he makes, any little time he loses, seems to be in places that Gasol just can't get past.
Well, I suppose that's the optimum situation that you really want, because if your rival can't get past you in the places that they're quicker, then you're basically they're basically stuck behind you. Gasol, though, having a little bit of a look into Griffin's, not able to get it done. Of course, with these GT3 cars, you can really work those brakes hard. So this Mercedes train continuing its way now up the mountain. Oh, Adam Briggs just getting into the back of Reese Gasol slightly. That's not going to help matters at all. Have a look at how ragged they are across the top. That's insane.
Yeah, absolutely using every inch of the road, using all of the curbs there, getting very, very close to these concrete walls. And that's what you've got to do to be really quick over the top of the mountain. And that's what is one of these circuits where it's really difficult to get those last 5/10 out of the car, because you've got to be so committed, so brave, lap after lap. And Adam Briggs is maybe so brave he deserves to be committed.
Yeah, certainly. But at the same time, you have to respect the mountain. It can really bite you. Meanwhile, there's a crash at Forest Elbow. The track blocked coming out of Forest Elbow there. Looks... Oh, Ash Lear and Reese Keane involved in that one. Goodness me. We're going to take a look at a CPR car pass replay, and we got a safety car. Now, this is what Gallon and Rizzo need. Gallon and Peacenik, my apologies. So let's have a look at what happened here. Reese Keane, oh, he just turned around in Forest Elbow, lost the rear. Unfortunately, the drivers behind him had absolutely nowhere to go.
And this will close all of the pack back up. Will we see anyone take a pit stop now, Reese? What do you think? As we see Reese Keane just loses. It's the rear just pendulums around, blocks the track up there. There were 4 cars across stopped.
Yeah, we're taking another look at the incident from Ashley Lear's perspective as he makes his way through the dipper up behind, I believe that's John Schultz. Let's have a look. Ugh. Imagine coming around Forest Elbow to see that in front of you. You'd have no time to react at all. Well, we are back live, and I definitely think that it would be smart of some people to take a pit stop here. They could save a bit of time, a bit of track position possibly. Because if
somewhere along, Gasol has gotten past Rizzo there.
He has indeed. So, it will be interesting to see what's going on there. So we look at Reese Gasol now. And it looks like it happened into the chase on the lap previous, so that's very well timed for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the safety car will be out for at least another lap after this, so the drivers do have quite some time to relax, get themselves reconfigured, recalibrated in time for the next green flag period. Question is, who is going to pit? Surely Ross Rizzo would be best served by staying out.
Yeah, imagine the way the fuel restriction is that anyone who filled the tank now would be able to then get home on only the one remaining stop. But if Rizzo pitted now, he'd just be risking so much by burying himself back in the pack. And at the back of the pack where Luis Paulo Gallon and John Peasnick are, the real advantage that Rizzo has right now is the 25-something cars in this snake between him and Luis Paulo Gallon in 29th place.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, and that's what I'm alluding to. I guess you could say it would better serve his strategy if he were to pit now, but I think at this point you're better off getting that track position over your rivals, taking as much advantage of that very unfortunate situation as you possibly can.
But if there's one thing that we've learned watching these races here at the mountain is that we can look down from the commentary box and think we know what the optimal strategy is, and then Trick Sim Sports make us look silly.
Yeah, of course. They've done that at least once at Bathurst this year with their Bathurst 1000 win. So who knows what they're talking about in the Trick camp. Their drivers are currently running first, third, and sixth. So we'll see what happens when they come up to the pits. Now, the pit entry is just after this complex, the chase, here at Bathurst. So we'll wait to see who decides to peel off to drivers left and get in the pits. Lights are still on the safety car, so we will be going for one more lap after this one. So who goes into the pits? The Trick guys go in. Gasol goes in, Anthony Winkleman and Ross Rizzo too.
Who stays out is the real question. Is that the DPR Ben Max guys? So that looks like Briggs and Worley stay out. Just about everyone else decides, yep, this is an optimal time to take my first pit stop. What does Gallon do? What does Peasnick do?
They both stay out. Have a look at them there, overtaking everybody as they blast by out on the circuit.
I honestly thought they were out of it, but with this safety car, if the pit service they took after the accident counts to their compulsory pit stops, and I still would need some clarification about that, but they're not in a bad position if indeed you count them as having taken one pit stop. They're not in a horrible position if you don't. They are now back out, currently 4th and 5th.
Yeah, indeed they are.
Still all
really
to play for is my point here, Reese. I think it is still all to play for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think the people up in race control will be discussing whether or not Gallon and Peasnick will have already accounted for their first pit stop with that tow. My personal opinion is I don't think it should count. I think you should go physically take an actual pit stop out on the track in order for it to count. But that's just me. We'll see how it's decided here. Either way, there's already a lot to talk about. We're not even 10 laps in.
Precisely. Really, what this does is it just winds up the tension again, like we had from the race start.
Confirmed. They still need to pit twice. So, in my opinion, I think that's the right decision. We'll see what everyone else thinks about that, particularly in the YouTube chat.
And
what about
that
you,
being
David?
the case, I'm rather surprised that Piesnik and Gallon didn't come through the pits again right now when Rizzo did. They're going to be at a disadvantage from that.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I think maybe they're going for the track position argument as well. Maybe they'll be waiting to see if there's another safety car. Take one of their required stops then, because I get the feeling that there may be at least one more safety car in this one.
Yeah, but it's still entirely possible. This is still a very, very difficult track to drive. One that brings out unpressured mistakes, and ones where for around half of the lap, you can spin out and block the track and very easily cause a safety car. So it's still very, very likely. We should point out that Ross Rizzo is in 9th position now. So he's not buried too deep in the pack. Gallon and Piesnik don't have a massive track position advantage over him.
No, they certainly don't. But Ross Rizzo is a much more measured driver than either of them. Gallon and Piesnik have shown in the past they are the ones to initiate moves, initiate overtakes. Rizzo, usually when you see him, he's getting overtaken. Of course, that's not a statement on his driving ability. He certainly knows how to play the long game in these races, and that's why he's won the last 2 runnings of this championship.
Yeah, when you have a big season like this, lots of different races, consistency becomes key. And man, this is just, I can feel the tension in my body as we're ready to go racing again soon. This is mega.
Yes, certainly is. Adam Briggs going early, so it's DPR 1 and 2 as we go green once again. They got a really good gap on the field, leaving everyone else in the dust. So we're currently looking at Reese Gasol. He is behind, sandwiched between Anthony Winkleman and Ross Rizzo. In 8th place, I believe. But eyes will definitely be on the drivers up ahead of Luis Paulo Gallon and John Piesnik. And Gallon already looking for a move on James Hanna. Hanna, of course, stuck on the outside there of Griffins, and he will have no choice but to yield. He's just going to let those 2 championship contenders go on by. Awkward position, I think, for Hanna. He's right in the middle of all of these guys that are fighting very hard for the championship. All he can do is try and stay out of the way as best he can.
Yep, Hanna, one of those drivers who stayed out of the pits during the safety car. So now he drops behind Piesnik and Gallon and just has Winkleman behind him now, who's managed to get past Matt Huppertz, another one of the cars that stayed out. So now it's Reese Gasol and Ross Rizzo who are going to have to get past Matt Huppertz.
Yes, indeed. So we code back to our leaders. No, we don't. We're looking at Anthony Winkleman as he makes his... Reese Gasol as he pursues Matt Huppertz. Have a look at the draft there that the Mercedes has. Oh, this looks like a little bit of a Larry move coming into the chase. They give each other room though. Gasol right across the rumble strips, and oh, Matt! Goodness me! Nearly making contact with Ross Rizzo there, but fortunately, they both continue on, that could have ended very badly.
Yeah, very early on the brakes, and Rizzo sneaks through, and I'm not entirely sure Matt Huppertz was expecting it, but in the end, it's safe. And there's something happened to John Pease.
What on earth? He may have some technical issue there, John Peasnick. Oh my goodness, total heartbreak for him. What on earth happened?
Peasnick was leading the points coming into this race, and in the first 20 minutes, nothing, it seems, has gone his way. Some kind of mistake or issue towards Skyline very early in the race, we thought took him entirely out of contention. Then the safety car brought him back onto the pack, and now he may have disappeared. Some other kind of connection issue. That is heartbreak for John Peasnick, who has raced his heart out all season and at times had dominating pace, race-winning pace, and here, the final round, the mountain has bit hard.
Certainly has, either that or his equipment. Unfortunate there for John Peasnick. So we look at Scott Kozlowski, currently in hot pursuit of Martin Silvassi. Was flashing his lights there across the top, and Ross Rizzo, you can see just up ahead, going to make the move there. I believe that's James Hanna that he's going past. What a shot coming down Conrod Straight. Love these static cameras.
Absolutely gorgeous. And as that happens, they go side by side in the Ferraris there as well.
Yeah, look out, guys. Don't get too crossed up. Oh, there we go. Matt Huppertz into the wall. And it's confirmed John Peasnick, big technical issues. So we go to a quick replay of what happened here. So Matt Huppertz and James Hanna, the two Ferrari drivers who stayed out under the last pit stop. So Hanna obviously let Rizzo by, and Huppertz, I think, was looking to take advantage of that. They go side by side through the chase, but it just looks to me like they both came together on exit going for the same piece of track.
Yeah, maybe through the right-hander, Hanna on the outside pinched down a little too hard, but it's really hard to say. And that's such a difficult corner even by yourself, let alone trying to go too wide through there. Thankfully, Matt Huppertz, after a bit of contact with the wall, has gotten going again. No safety car from that, but leery bit of contact there, and I think almost everyone else got through unscratched. Though, as might be Stockton into the wall on the outside of the cutting.
Yeah, goodness me, that's awkward. Oh! Meanwhile, we got a car around. That's, Tim Owema, and is that Phil Otto as well? So we look again at a replay here following Tim Owema. So Damon Stockton there up ahead. Of course, got a Synergy Sim Racing car in the midst of it with them too. Oh my goodness. So that was a pretty big incident there that put Stockton into the wall, and Tim Owema, I think, had nothing that he was able to do there. Meanwhile, McLeod has had issues of his own.
Yeah, indeed. I'm sure we're going to get a look at that. That's a very second-hand looking Audi R8.
Yeah, very much so. Looping it at Skyline, that's one of the parts of the track that really bites. So, a lot happening on that lap, but still no safety car. Meanwhile, we look at Gallon and Worley. So Gallon now is in the box seat to win the championship in terms of track position right now. But we have to remember, he's still got to make 2 pit stops. Ross Rizzo only needs to make 1. And Gallon is trying to get as much track position as he possibly can on these 2 DPR cars that are currently leading the race. The problem is, Gallon, usually an aggressive overtaker, but you can't afford to be like that at Bathurst.
Exactly. We've seen the track here at the cutting almost be blocked before. And it's one of those things where there really isn't 2 lines through all of these corners until you get almost past Forest Elbow, you'd have to be brave or psychotic. Regardless, three cars here. He does give a little tap to the wall there, carries on. But 3 cars here yet to make any of their 2 compulsory pit stops.
Yes, indeed. So, Worley showing signs of the pressure getting to him. We're right on board with him looking back at Gallon here. You see Gallon's taking a much more direct line to the apex of Forest Elbow. But he's just unable to get the gap that he needs, or the pace that he needs, I guess, across the top to make an attack here down Conrad. Look at how far behind he is.
Yeah, even with the panels looking a little bit straighter on Luis Paulo Gallon's car than Philip Worley, he just doesn't seem to have enough in a straight line. He'd have to be absolutely underneath that rear wing of Philip Worley coming out of Forest Elbow to really have a chance coming into the chase. Maybe nothing we can visually see, but he looks to be maybe just not having all of the power or straight line speed that we expect.
Yeah, definitely seems that way. He does look very aggressive coming into the corners, so may not have a car that's optimally set up for exits. Having said that, he's gotten a good run out of Hell Corner. As Maloney and Hannah were seeing just hit each other coming into the pits. Jake Maloney with a very second-hand looking Ford GT. I thought we weren't running that car this season.
Definitely the first appearance of the Ford GT I can remember, and thankfully someone appears to have some spare parts for it, as it's now looking a little bit better for Jake Maloney. He obviously takes a much shorter pit stop than James Hanna, though.
Yeah, he does. Back out on the track, meanwhile, Luis Paulo Gallon following the DPR Ben Max machines. You can see just across the top, Worley has the better of him. Gallon just not able to put that aggression on coming down the hill.
Yep, through qualifying, Luis Paulo Gallon was absolutely committed over that section, really carrying a lot of speed, but just not looking comfortable with it in race trim, and doesn't look to have anything for Adam Briggs or Philip Worley. While that's happening, though, Winkleman has been taking tenths out of him, and Mitchell McLeod, problems for him again.
Yep. Looks like that is a fair whack of the wall. He has escaped back to the garage. So, looks like that won't be a safety car.
Mitch McLeod not finding any luck at Mount Panorama either.
No, certainly not. He's getting word from our director that he's tried VR tonight, so he might be experiencing a few issues with that. Meanwhile, Gasol just past Anthony Winkleman, so they make their way up. Oh, bit too much grass, I think Anthony Winkleman was taking there. Oh, have a look, Gallon. He's got this. He just might. On Worley, they make contact! Oh, goodness me, Worley. Got to be careful of that. Everyone else will have to make their way past. I'll tell you what, I don't think that was Gallon's fault, honestly.
No, he was well alongside, moved to the inside early, and he stayed to the inside to the apex. Obviously, we get a replay. It looks like Worley's just closed down a tiny bit too close, and that's looped him around in a very difficult spot again.
Yeah, we're still looking at Philip Worley. He is unable to get that thing going. He's just able to get it turned around now, so he was stopped for a very long time. That's a real shame for Worley. Running very strongly with his teammate Adam Briggs up the front, but he's going to have to do a lot of work to recover something out of this. He lost 50 seconds out of all of that.
Yeah, that's an incredible...
Oh no, Hayden Dodman now having an issue up the top here. Oh, that car doesn't look healthy. He is struggling to maintain control of that thing. Oh, into Chaz Mostert's wall, coming up to the elbow, and he is back there on the outside. We'll look at a replay. What on earth happened to him here? Car just riding the bumps, and oh, what a whack. He got upside down at the dipper.
Yep, carrying a lot of speed in there. At one point, it's the back starts sliding. He steers in to try and correct the skid, and then it grips again, and he smacks straight into that wall. And that's very, very tough for Hayden Dodd.
It certainly is. Adam Briggs currently in the pits, so he is now away. That's a green flag pit stop. He's going to be losing quite a bit of time out of that. But now we look at Anthony Winkleman. He has not dropped from Reese Gasol very much. Kozlowski and Slovasi very close as well. These two have been at each other's throats from the moment the green flag dropped at the start. Kozlowski, you can see, particularly in the earlier stages, he had quite a bit of pace on Silvassi coming up here across the top. But Silvassi has gotten into his groove very nicely, and it looks like he's maintaining the gap from him very well.
Yep, indeed.
Well, they look pretty much nose to tail right now. Jake Maloney retiring from the race, obviously not having a very fun time at all. So can Kozlowski get by Silvassi here? Of course, he doesn't have the advantage of Silvassi having a different car. He can take advantage of the disadvantages of. They are both in Mercedes.
Scott Kozlowski, though, using the headlight flashes, which we all know are bound to a push to pass as well.
Yes, indeed. Certainly. Meanwhile, two things have just happened. Luis Paulo Gallon into the pits, and Philip Worley black flagged by race control for an unsafe rejoin. So that would have been after what happened between him and Gallon at Griffin's. So while we were on replay, obviously he re-entered the track in a very dangerous manner. So race control right on that, David.
Yeah, exactly. And so with Gallon pitting, it means everyone out has taken one stop, and we have one stop to go for just about everyone. Past the halfway point, I imagine most of these guys could get home from about 25 minutes to go. Remains to be seen. I reckon if you're Reese Gasol, Anthony Winkleman, Ross Rizzo, or Martin Silvassi here, you stay out as long as you can on this fuel.
Yeah, I certainly think so. Well, it seems that Kozlowski has dropped off from the back of Silvassi. Of course, they will probably have this battle decided by the final pit stop. As Briggs and Gallon continuing to fight for what is now position 17. So this is Luis Paulo Gallon's problem here, David. He knows that he has to finish ahead of Rizzo to win the championship. John Peasnick is out of the picture now. He doesn't have to worry about him. But Rizzo is still out there, and I don't know whether Gallon may be ruining the fact that he didn't take that initial pit stop under the first safety car.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he had to lose from pitting under that safety car. I think the track position that he gained is absolutely taken away by how much time he lost. As again, Kozlowski's looking. He goes to the outside and he gets through.
Oh, wow. Very nice move there from Kozlowski. But as we go back live, I do think Silvassi may have recognized that Kozlowski has a bit of pace over him, just deciding to yield. Meanwhile, this is another couple that have been added all race. Jamie McKnight riding on board with, looking back at Alex John. Very scary Mercedes front end bearing down on you coming up Mountain Straight. These two are currently fighting for some of the last positions in the top 10.
Yeah, Alex John, oh goodness, does that nose get very, very close. But he's one of those people who snuck up on us a little bit. He hasn't, maybe taken any wins this year, but he is, I believe, 8th in the points standings coming into this one. He's just made good races, good points hauls, race after race, and now still looking very racy, although now Steve Jansen will catch up onto this train as well.
Yes, indeed. And Steve Jansen is another driver that is, I guess, in the same vein as Alex John. In the past few months, he's really ramped up the quality of his racing on our broadcasts here at SimSpeed TV. And it's been interesting to see the way his progress has been charted throughout this year. So I think all three of the drivers in this little pack, both John, Jansen and McKnight, have really had a big turn up in form this year. Ooh, we've got a car stop on the track. That's John Schultz at the dipper. That's no good. So, gonna look at what happened to him. So, he comes across the top. We may have just taken a bit too much curb there, and round he went, just unable to recover it. Ouch.
Yeah, and that's a replay that deserves at least a little bit of Eurobeat, because there was a lot of slip angle from very early in the corner. He caught it one way, and then back through the dipper, he just couldn't quite have enough lock, enough front grip to hold on to it, and eventually it pendulumed around.
Yes, indeed. Alex John right on the back of Jamie McKnight. Sorry to interrupt you there, David, but this is getting very, very close for 8th position. Alex John has managed to catch back up to the back of Jamie McKnight. This is pretty crazy at the moment.
Steve Jansen's dropped off a tiny bit from these guys, but he's still about a second back. But it's Alex John that's putting the pressure on Jamie McKnight. He doesn't look entirely happy. The car's moving around just a little bit more than you'd expect from a GT3 machine that's got, a bit of downforce, it's got ABS, it's got traction control, should be a little bit more planted. Alex John absolutely committed through the dipper though, getting it really close to the wall.
Yes, indeed. He's doing everything right there at the moment. Let's see what kind of exit he gets relative to McKnight. Seems like Jamie's just ever so slightly pulled a gap on him straight out of the corner, but this is where the draft comes in. This is how John is able to stay in touch. McKnight doesn't have anybody in front of him to draft off. So John getting right on the back of him here, just lifting off slightly coming into the chase, probably to save a bit of fuel. Have a look at the run that he's got out of the chase, though. Oh, is McKnight going to pit?
McKnight goes into the pits, I think.
Yeah, seems that way.
That's interesting. I was just thinking with 20 minutes to go, definitely well and truly within the window to stop and get to the end. Unless Jamie McKnight had to pit, I'm not sure he gains anything from giving free track to Alex John, though.
Yes, indeed. It's very interesting. I think it would have been beneficial for Alex John to go in with McKnight. But no matter. We currently look at Adam Briggs and Luis Paulo Gallon, who are still going at it. Gallon,
this
sorry,
currently for 11th and 12th position. What do you see about Luis Paulo Gallon?
I'm a bit confused because, I would have thought that he'd be driving a little bit more aggressively, especially considering the race has ended its final 20 minutes. But Gallon is driving a lot more sedately than I'm used to seeing from him.
Yeah, in fact, even if we see there, Adam Briggs using a lot more of the curb, running it a lot closer to the wall. It's, every ending's a beginning, and this might be a new beginning for Luis Paulo Gallon. It's a very cautious. So he takes plenty of the curb there. You really would have thought he'd have the pace advantage over Adam Briggs, though.
Yeah, definitely. Slightly confused. I think maybe Gallon is just biding his time. Maybe he almost recognizes that the championship fight may almost be over with him not taking that pit stop, and maybe he's lost a bit of the motivation. I can't really say for sure. I can't look into his head and find out what he's thinking, but I don't know. There's just something about his driving that seems off. This isn't the Luis Paulo Gallon we've grown to know.
Yeah, we've seen races this season where he started from pole, taken race wins convincingly, and no one's looked like they could touch his pace. And now, several laps he's been here behind Briggs, as we see a couple more people coming down onto the lane. So Dan King's in, Steve Jansen in, Reese Keane, Wayne Hewitt. It's just about pit stops time, I reckon. Maybe in 1 or 2 more laps, we'll see the likes of Gasol, Winkleman, and Rizzo into the pits.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of Gasol, Winkleman, and Rizzo, we are focused on Mr. Rizzo, the number 1 car, and currently in the box seat to retain that number 1 for the foreseeable future. Just looking very calm out there on his own in 3rd place. Now this is some quintessential Ross Rizzo right here, David. He's very smooth. He's just driving to the limit of this car and absolutely no further. Once again, it's paid dividends for him.
Yep, this is high quality Ross Rizzo. He's not really made any mistakes this race. He qualified 6th, but then he's seen plenty of other people around him overdrive it, bang doors, make maybe blunders with their pit strategy, and he is sitting exactly doing everything he needed to do, and he's now sitting in the position that, barring anything else, as he comes into the pits now for what will be his final stop, as does Gasol and Winkleman in front of him, so just about everyone coming into the pits for their final stop. As the live points would stand, he will be the champion.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. It looks like also coming in quite a few people. Where is Luis Paulo Gallon? Seems he's staying out once again. So that's odd. Gallon hasn't made a stop, has he? He's made 1 stop. Made 1 stop. So, yeah. Yeah, the strategy from Gallon has not worked in his favor at all, because have a look at that. Ross Rizzo's just come out of the pits and Gallon's right there in front of him.
Yep, Gallon currently into the 5th lap of his stint, dropping back significantly from Briggs there. I don't know if maybe he believes that he's done 2 pit stops, even though race control are not counting the first tow as a pit stop, and it's trying to save fuel to get to the end of the race from what he would think of as his 2nd pit stop, and race control and we know as his 1st compulsory pit stop.
Yeah, that may be possible. Well, Ross Rizzo in his outlap on his final stint. Oh, goodness me. That could have gotten very ugly very quickly from Rizzo. You just lose it on the curb there at McPhillamy Park, and once the car decides it's going, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, precisely. And another thing is Alex John was pressuring Jamie McKnight before their stops, and then Jamie came in the lap earlier and has now come out behind Alex John, so that battle getting resolved through the pit stop cycle.
Yes, indeed. So that should work out interestingly for those guys. Briggs and Gallon staying out once again. So they're leaving it as late as possible to take their final pit stop here. You know, David, you might be right. Luis Paulo Gallon may not be aware that he has to stop again. He might be fuel saving there behind Briggs.
That's very much what it looks like, how much of a gap Briggs has pulled away compared to earlier. Gallon was definitely trying to look for a way past. I can see why Luis Paulo Gallon would feel, I guess, hard done by is not really the sporting term, but it's what I mean by the mistake of John Peasnick causing him to have to take the tow, and that not counting as a compulsory pit stop when it's disadvantaged him. But rules are rules, I guess, and if you're caught up in an incident even not of your doing, that's motorsport, I guess.
Yeah. I would presume yes. It's just a shame though. I mean, has someone got in contact with him and told him that he needs to pit again? Apparently a notification was given under safety car to everybody that all competitors needed to pit twice. So I suppose if Gallon still believes that he doesn't need to pit again, then he has no excuse.
Yep, indeed. And in fact, what we can see there is that the next car on track behind Gallon is Ross Rizzo. Maybe Luis Paulo Gallon will try and stay out, take the checkered flag, and argue about it with race control after the race. But I can't imagine that working in his favor, honestly.
No.
I don't imagine him disobeying race control and then race control changing their mind.
No, certainly not. I mean, it's been made clear earlier on in the race that's the way you got to do it. So, you know, I guess the drivers can do whatever they like, but at the end of the day, if race control says you got to do something, you got to do it.
Another little battle further down the field, though. I think for 20th position, Matt Hoppertz is chasing down Eric Thorpe. So even though things might look a bit settled higher up in the field, there's always plenty happening deeper into the field of races like these.
Yeah, certainly. Eric Thorpe there for Swift Racing, and of course battling with Matt Hoppertz, who has been in the wars a bit himself in this one.
I think in his more recent pit stop, they've straightened out some of the panels on that Ferrari for Matt Hoppertz after his little door banging incident with, it was James Hanna on the exit of the chase. So I think that car's looking relatively pacey again for Matt Hoppertz, and he has the benefit of the draft following Eric Thorpe, what's now 19th position as James Hanna has just come through the pits.
Yes, indeed. Meanwhile, the only cars in the field that have only pitted once are Adam Briggs and Luis Paulo Gallon, and as the race is about to enter its final 10 minutes, you gotta think, will Gallon take that second stop? Briggs has to come in pretty soon, surely.
Yep, Briggs now starting the ninth lap of his stint, or he meant the 10th lap, and so that is, you know, going on more than 20 minutes. And I think with the 40% fuel tank, these guys are only going to be able to do about 25 minutes to a fuel tank anyway. So definitely about 2 laps time, you'd imagine Briggs would have to pit out of necessity of running out of fuel.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we'll see. We'll see. As Mauricio Lastres and Reese Keane are battling. So Keane was a second quicker than Lastres on the last lap, so may very well be that a move will be on very soon, possibly here at Griffin's. Now, we've already seen in this race, David, but Griffin's is one of those turns where you cannot be on the outside and hold it. Let's have a look at what happens here. King going up the inside, Lastres having to yield. Of course, David, you can go side by side through there, but it won't end well if you're on the outside.
Yeah, so very polite racing there between Reese Keane and Mauricio Lastres, but you're absolutely right. I've tried it myself a few times, and you just, even if you get safely through that turn too wide, you can't hold the momentum on the outside for whatever reason of the way the corner is cambered or just the profile of it. It's very, very difficult to make a pass or hold a position around the outside.
Yes, indeed. It's just a consequence of this track being public roads most of the year. They have to incorporate a bit of a crown in the road in places to assist with drainage, according to the law. So that's the reason why Griffin's Bend is the way that it is, and honestly, I don't think we'd have it any other way. But Reese Keane now leaving Mauricio Lastres behind, so I think
Adam Briggs does hit, and that would say that probably Luis Paulo Gallon only has one more lap of fuel.
Yep, definitely seems that way. There's still 5 laps to go here at Bathurst. We've entered the final 8 minutes of the race. I mean, you do have to feel for Gallon. No fault of his own was that opening incident. We did touch on it before, David. Peasneck unfortunately had that, what we presume was a hardware failure, all by himself. Gallon had absolutely nothing to do with it and had done nothing wrong up to that point.
Yeah, and Gallon did do everything that he needed to do leading into this race. He qualified third, then on the first lap got past Josh Anderson up into second place, and I assume he was really putting the pressure on John Peasneck. But then maybe he was just too close as Peasneck came unstuck. So he started the race off strong, and then it's just all unraveled, and Ross Rizzo has looked unflappable.
Yes, indeed. Unflappable, I think, is the Ross Rizzo way. He's definitely shown that to be the main aspect of his driving style. We look at Adam Briggs, though, of course, now without a teammate, because Philip Worley retired from the race straight after his penalty was announced. So now Briggs is up behind Alex John. And that's back in the lower reaches of the top 10. Hewitt stopped. That's at Skyline. Looks like that may be safe. Not quite sure. Let's look at what happened here. Wayne Hewitt just getting a bit loose, I think, over the exit curb. Oh, more than a bit loose. Absolutely monstered that curb, and the curb monstered him right back.
Yep, he was a bit wide of the apex, and when you hit that very steep curb at speed and the suspension is all compressed, any car, no matter how you set up the dampers, it's going to give you a lot of bounce, and that spun Wayne Hewitt around, and he hit the wall rather hard, and lucky to get it going again.
Yes, indeed. We look at Luis Paulo Gallon. He is still not pitted. Surely he'd have to pit soon.
Yeah,
he'd be running on fumes in that thing.
If we use Adam Briggs' stint as sort of a measure, Luis Paulo Gallon's now gone 1 lap longer than that. I'm not sure he's got 4 more laps in the tank. That doesn't seem possible, or indeed feasible if you were being chased down by Ross Rizzo, who is getting a little bit closer in his mirrors.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, like, you got to consider the incident with Gallon and Peasneck happened on lap 2, so that's put their strategy out by, I think, 1.5, maybe 2 laps. So Luis Paulo Gallon, I think, can only go a maximum of 2 laps from when Briggs pitted. I would expect him in at the end of this one.
I would too, but then I've been surprised by this race and this championship before. So we'll have our eyes on him, and I guess we'll take the evidence of our eyes as to what Luis Paulo Galán can do. He goes to the right of track and stays out at least one more lap. Rhys Gasol ahead of him has crossed the line about 15 seconds ago with 3 laps to go on the lead lap.
This has been a very interesting finale, to say the least. I don't think it's gone quite the way anyone expected. Not the drivers, not race control, not ourselves up here in the commentary box. It's been one of the strangest races I've ever seen in this championship's history.
Yeah, indeed. And so we got our eyes now on Adam Briggs has come out of the pits behind Alex John and has been closing it up on that Team Milo car. And he only needs to go and go and go for 3 more laps to hold on to 7th place.
Well, as the race counts down. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa! Goodness me! Big incident from Alex John.
And the second incident in a row we've seen at that corner, but he's lost it a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Coming in, we're going to get a replay, of course. He's lost it a lot earlier in the corner than we saw before.
Yes, indeed. Looks like he actually lost it on the entry. So, as we take a look at this replay, he comes over the top and just, through the compression, the car just goes. Oh! He hit the curb on the outside coming into the corner, and it bounced. We're on board with him here for this one. Let's have a look. He was working the wheel very hard. Oh, yeah. That's very strange. It looked to me like the car maybe just bottomed out.
I think he was just a bit greedy with the curb on the right-hand side, trying to take the widest possible entry. And we'll see it again, just out at the wall there where it has the Dick Smith branding. The car's just gotten a little bit of air, and then as it's bitten again into the corner, he's got a slide. And once you get enough of a slide in these kind of GT3 cars, it's difficult to correct it without the car snapping back the other way.
Indeed it is. Steve Jansen with heavy damage coming into the pits, and he's just going to pull off right there, and I believe that may be him done.
Well, with just 2 laps to go, that's not how Steve Jansen would want to end this one at all.
No.
I'm not sure what's happened to him there, but to get so far into this race and have it ended, that's not how you want to go at all.
No, he was close to getting a top 10 almost. He was fighting with Alex John and the like. Unfortunately, Alex John with his own issues as well. So those guys who were running very, very well at the end of the top 10, unfortunately, Jamie McKnight will not be joined by them.
Battle deeper in the field for 15th place. Daniel Cheney, I think, gets past Alex Court, and Eric Thorpe is right in there as well. So right in the dying stage of this race, there's racing for everyone, even if it's all spaced out a little bit more at the top of the field.
Indeed it is. We're right on board with Eric Thorpe. Following Cheney and Court as they make their way up the hill. Rhys Gasol starting his final lap of this race as the clock hits 20 seconds to go. This is a very nice battle back in the field, and Luis Paulo Galán still going, so race control will not be looking at that kindly.
Yep, and now with Ross Rizzo right behind him as well, so even if Galán doesn't take another stop, Rizzo has the pace to get him. But if I was Ross Rizzo, I would be treating that LP racing car as the hind legs of a horse. I would be staying well clear. Rizzo doesn't need to get involved whatsoever.
No, certainly doesn't. But you can see Gallon just lifting off on entry, fuel saving like mad. So Rizzo is the one in hot pursuit and looking to make a move on Gallon for a change. So this is the final lap of the race. We'll have to wait and see what happens between these two title contenders, of course. If Luis Paulo Gallon finishes ahead of Ross Rizzo, he will be demoted because he has not taken his 2 compulsory pit stops. Rizzo makes a mistake across the top.
Yeah, Rizzo falls back a little bit, but he probably knows he doesn't need to pass Luis Paulo Gallon. Otherwise, you'd expect him to be monstering him far more than he is. So, Rizzo, we know he's the calculating type, and so is his team. And I think he knows he doesn't need to pass Gallon on track here and not interested in it.
No, certainly not. But up front, Reese Gasol, perhaps the most faultless drive out of anyone here today. He takes the win for Element Motorsports, a fantastic victory for Gasol. So Element Motorsports does get a top step in this event, despite John Peasnick, unfortunately, retiring. Anthony Winkleman in second, and Ross Rizzo going for the dive on Luis Paulo Gallon, and they make contact! Why is Rizzo waiting? He's going to try and redress that one right at the end, but it's... Gallon's got no fuel left, has he? Perhaps, but there we go, that's it. Gallon out of fuel right at the final corner. He doesn't have the fuel to get it going again. We're going to go for the replay on that. Wow, they were fighting hard coming into the chase, weren't they?
Yeah, indeed. Gallon covered the inside there. Rizzo's then obviously come at him here, and this is probably where Gallon's run out of fuel. Rizzo nose in a long way, and Gallon, I think, just comes right across it in desperation. I'm not sure that was Rizzo's fault whatsoever, but wow. On the final lap of the last race, our 2 title contenders make contact, Reese.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the championship had already well been decided by that point. So again, very strange circumstances. If these guys, if Gallon had taken his second pit stop and was legitimately fighting with Rizzo for the championship as he would have been, then we would have absolutely exploded in the commentary box. But hey, that's the way this series concludes. Ross Rizzo is your champion, confirmed. Poor Gallon, he's managed to get it onto the start-finish straight, but he is not moving. Wow, what a result. And the results are as follows. Reese Gasol winning, with Anthony Winkleman and Scott Kozlowski completing the podium. Kozlowski from 10th to 3rd. Very nice. Ross Rizzo, in finishing 4th, is your champion 3 times in a row in this series. What an amazing run. Martin Silvassi completing the top 5. Adam Briggs in 6th. Dan King coming home in 7th. Jamie McKnight in 8th. Reese Keane in 9th. And rounding out the top 10, Mauricio Lastres.
11th place goes to Benjamin Johnson. 12th to Wayne Hewitt, holding off Dave Oliver. 14th goes to Daniel Cheney. 15th to Eric Thorpe. 16th to Matt Hoppitz. 17th to Alex Court. 18th goes to James Hanna. 19th place classified is Luis Paulo Gallon, and 20th Phil Otto.
Damon Stockton finishing a lap down, and we come into our retirements for this race. Alex John and Steve Jansen, those two would have had a much better run. They were both in the running for the top 10. Tim Owemer classified 24th, and now we go into our really big retirements. Ash Lear, John Schultz, Philip Worley, Hayden Dodman, Jake Maloney, Mitchell McLeod, John Peasnick. What a heartbreaking name to see there, right at the bottom of the timesheets. Out. Only a few laps in, losing the championship at the final hurdle. Griffin Gardner and Joshua Anderson completing the field. So there we go. What more is there to say? I mean, you cannot script that. You absolutely can't script that, David.
Oh, precisely. I mean, we had so much anticipation coming into this race. 3 points separating the top three. We knew whoever finished ahead on track was going to be your champion. And in the end, the final race really mirrored Ross Rizzo's entire season. He didn't have barnstorming pace at pole. He didn't have any of that. He just ran his own race, ran a good strategy, and finished well enough while Peasnick and Gallen ran into issues. And that's the story not only of this championship, but of Ross Rizzo's other championships, is just doing his race, his style, and making sure that that's solid, and trusting that everyone else will either fall apart or have things not go their way.
Yeah, certainly. But I suppose that's the way the metaphorical cookie crumbles, and that's going to bring to an end proceedings for tonight. I mean, Race Control may still look at that final incident between Gallon and Rizzo, but it will not change the championship. Your Geodesic Racing Sprint Series Australia champion is Ross Rizzo for the third time in a row. What a final. And thank you very much for joining us all the way through this season. It has been hands down one of the best seasons of online racing I've ever had the pleasure of commentating, and I cannot wait for the next season because we are leaving GT3 behind and moving to the GTE class for the next season of this series. Hope to see you both on the track and in the broadcast booth. We have been SimSpeed TV. I'm Reese Gardner, David Haynes joining me in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy directing. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.